Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside David Aragona with producer Bobby helping us out for a stakes preview over at Woodbine on Sunday. This one is the third leg of the Canadian Triple Crown. We're going to head on up and preview the Breeders' Stakes Sunday at Woodbine. So, David, the Canadian Triple Crown, a little different than how we do it down here in the U.S. They run on different surfaces. They run on the synthetic, then on the dirt, then we come to the turf, going 1.5 miles here. And we have 4 horses who were in the King's Plate. They were actually the 4 horses that were trailing the field for a lot of the race and actually kind of like heading into the top of the stretch. We have a couple fillies in here too. And the horse to beat on the outside is Tom's Magic, who's the even money favorite on the morning line.
Yeah, I guess it shouldn't become a big surprise when horses that are plodding along and picking up pieces in shorter races, their connections want to target them at the longest leg of the Canadian
Yep.
Triple Crown, this 1.5 mile breeder stakes. But that's kind of a theme of this race as you go through the field. A lot of these runners don't have a lot of early speed, so kind of tough to figure out how this field is going to sort itself out in the early stages.
And that's why we may need to lean on our friends with the Time Form US Pace Projector. Let's see what they think about how this race could shape up. It's not a whole lot of pace up front early. I mean, you see a horse like Borealis Trail, David. This horse hasn't ever really even shown that much speed, was sitting off the pace one time, but there just really aren't any horses that are fast early, need the lead type. This is a group of real horses whose connections think that they're 1.5 mile type horses and distance runners.
Yeah, I actually don't think the connections of the number 3 Borealis Trail would want to see him on the lead because that
No.
was actually his worst race when he was forwardly placed 2 back and did much better when he was covered up behind horses. I don't know if they're going to have that opportunity here because everybody around him is such a plotter. Maybe the number 5 Aristella shows a little more tactical speed because she did so early in her career, has sort of gotten away from that lately. But in this field, somebody's going to have to set the pace. So I think it might be one of those two, but it's going to be a jockey's race.
Let's meet this field from inside to outside, and we'll start with the number 1, Scat Girl, one of, I think, 3 fillies that are in this race, and she actually comes out of the Wonderwear on September the 6th. I believe we have a replay of that one, David, where she was behind Aristella, so those top 2 come out of that race. They're going to be facing the boys, and they'll be stepping up a little bit. I think both of the fillies who weren't separated by all that much seem like they probably need to improve a little bit, though, to get the better of a group like this. Their speed figures aren't that far off, though, just coming off that most recent race.
Yeah, I do have some concerns about the quality of the Wonderwear translating to this race. There were actually, I think, 3 Mark Casse runners in there, and they were the last 3 across the wire. It was actually the other 2 that completed the exact in that race, including the long shot Scat Girl. She's a horse that took 14 races to break her maiden. She finally did so 3 back, and she's gotten into a pretty good groove since then. She just concentrated on shorter races for so much of her career. She doesn't strike me as a horse that really has the profile of one that's going to get a lot better going 1.5 miles. So I found her a little tough to make in this spot.
We move to the number 2, Dioram, who's a maiden. Actually, hasn't even finished second in 9 starts, a couple third place finishes. The dam of this one was a grade 3 winner going 1 mile and 3/16. So when you think distance, that's probably right up the alley for this one. I think that's really why they're probably taking a shot in here, right? Just assuming this is a horse who should be able to run all day, but it hasn't been very competitive now in about 4 or 5 races in a row. And this is probably tougher than those spots.
Yeah, I wonder if she's actually going to run in here because she is going out for the same connections as the number 7 Faber, same owner, same trainer, and actually same jockey named on this horse. So
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe she's only in here as an insurance policy if something happens to that one. As you said, she's a maiden. She's another plotter. She seems like she'll stay a long distance. I just don't know how fast she's going to do it against a field like this.
Borealis Trail put it all together on August the 3rd, David. I thought it was a pretty good performance. A fine start, was sitting about 3 lengths off in 5th or 6th, was in the 2 path, was in a little bit of traffic, had to wait, always seemed to be traveling well, and then angled out and really got going late. And seems like a horse who was kind of figuring things out over the last few. And that was the performance where they grabbed a hold. They didn't put this horse on the lead or sit close to it. And I feel like, as you were pointing out when we looked at the projector, that trip worked out so well. Why would you want to go back to showing speed when that didn't work out well? I really like this effort. And when you look at this field, he's one of the more lightly raced horses in this field. You feel like there's some upside there. I just think he's a good fit.
He is a good fit in this race. The quality of that maiden race seems like it might actually translate pretty well, even though he's stepping up into stakes company here. I really like the way he finishes off. He extends himself over the turf in a way that it didn't seem like he had over the synthetic surface. So it did feel like the surface switch really woke this horse up last time. But I also agree that the change in tactics probably had a lot to do with that result. He did get some pace to close into last time. Obviously, not going to get that same pace that I'm stretching out here. When you look at the pedigree, he's a half brother to a horse named Simcoe, who they tried to make into a router early in his career. He actually was 11th in the Breeders' Stakes, but he has since turned into one of the better sprinters up in Canada. So I wonder if the added distance will work for this horse, but I do think the last race he showed some quality on the grass.
Even on the dam side, multiple graded stakes winner going a mile. There's some class in the pedigree, just not sure how
Yeah.
far they want to go. We move to Cunis. David, I believe this is an Irish word that means
Mhm.
silence or quiet. So nothing to do with me when you're talking about Cunis. But this is a gelding who's actually been pretty impressive in the two starts against softer company. Visually, I like that this horse was in a little tight early, was in between horses, lost some positioning behind horses, and then found room and angled around, looked like a handy horse that you can kind of move a few different times and start and stop if you have to. I don't know how classy he is, but he's sort of punched up so far in his career. You can understand why they take a shot here and just see where he stacks up.
Yeah, well named horse by silent name out of an oratory dam. That's a pretty good naming for Cunis. Yeah, we'll take a look at the replay of the most recent start here when he got on turf for the first time, and I thought it was a decent trip overall. He was towards the back early, kind of got put in tight in the beginning stages of the race, but then kind of settled in the two path, saved enough ground, and once he angles into the clear, just like we saw in his debut race, he produces a nice kick to run past the leaders and win pretty comfortably in the end. My question with this horse, Gino, is the quality of the races
Yep.
that he's coming out of. Because looking through some of those fields, which you can do in DRF Formulator, look up the PPs of some of the horses that finished behind him, didn't see a whole lot of talent in there. And I just think this is a big step up in class as well as a significant stretch out in distance.
And sometimes we look at races where the speed figures might be a little light, but horses are coming back and running well out of those races. And so we're not really sure what to think. This one sort of seems like the speed figures are light and the horses haven't really
Yeah.
come back and run all that well. So we just don't know if he's been facing tough enough company to compete with a group like this. Aristella is a multiple stakes winner, another filly facing the boys. She was the winner of that Wonderwear last time out where she defeated Scat Girl. She was just behind the leaders heading into the stretch. She angled around. In the end, it was kind of a pretty easy, like workman-like win there, David. She got a nice trip when she angled out, and I have no problem with it, but I think she will need to move forward again off of that effort.
Yeah, maybe the best thing that I can say about her, Gino, is that she ran the best race of her career when she got on this inner turf course at Woodbine, because we probably should highlight that
Great
this
point.
race for the first time is going to be run over the inner turf course. So it's going to be a 3-turn mile-and-a-half race where they start on the backstretch. Usually they're able to run this race around 2 turns over the EP Taylor turf course that is on the outside of the dirt course at Woodbine, but that course is currently closed for repairs. So this race will be transferred to the inner. And Aristella did run well in that Wonderwear. I thought she got a great trip in that race. Again, like I said, for Scat Girl, not really sure about the quality of that field. It seemed like some others in there didn't really want to go the distance. And she's another one where I question if the added ground is really going to work for her, but she is coming off a career best effort.
We move to Watsonville Red. This one is just 1 for 9 overall, but his dam did win a graded stakes going 1.25 miles, so should be able to go a little bit longer if needed. This most recent effort, it was a race that just didn't really shape up for him. He's last at the back of the pack in a race that's basically won by a lone speed winner. Mancetti was kind of sitting second early and then made an early move to the lead. So the race didn't shape up for him. I do remember coming out of the plate trial thinking that this horse was kind of a live long shot going into the King's Plate, David, just for a distance underneath horse who could pick up some pieces. So I do think he can run all day. He just doesn't have a lot of early speed. And it seems like the type of horse who might need the most perfect trip and everything to fall his way.
Yeah, I mean, not to skip ahead too much, I did not include this horse in my picks, but if I was going to play this race or, get involved in some exactas and trifectas, he's a horse that I would want to use underneath somewhere because, as you were kind of alluding to, he's going to stay the distance. He finishes well. He lacks the turn of foot that usually you need to win races at this level on the turf, but he's got all these stamina influences through his pedigree. I was actually looking up his sire, Hardspun, and formulating where we do a breakdown of sire statistics in all different situations, and Hardspun's progeny win 21% of their marathon starts, which is one of the highest figures I've seen across all stallions. So I think Watsonville Red is going to like the distance. Just view him more as a candidate for a minor award.
Faber is the only horse who is now going to be racing in all three legs of the Canadian Triple Crown this year, David. And this guy had legitimate trouble in the King's Plate. He got stopped a couple different times when he wanted to go in the middle of the pack. There were a few horses in there that were all trying to launch from way out of it and had some traffic trouble. And I thought Faber came back in the Prince of Wales at Fort Erie just a few weeks ago. That was a pretty good performance. Was last of seven, was inside, moved in between horses, had some momentum. At one point, he built up the momentum. It looked like he was going to win the race, but you could just see the way the racetrack was playing that day and the couple horses that sort of separated, and he flattened out a little bit. But he did really move up with some serious intent and momentum, David. I think this horse is certainly moving in the right direction. The blinkers coming off can get him to relax just a little bit more. I think he's a major player in here.
Yeah, I agree about his last couple of races. If there was a trip horse that I think you want to bet back out of the King's Plate, for me, it was Faber. He had trouble at multiple points. He was trying to make move at upper stretch, got steadied there, got steadied again coming to the wire. Things just did not go right for him in that race. And as you said, he ran well in the dirt last time. I'm not sure that he really is a dirt horse. Now they're switching to the turf here, but he seems like a horse that can act over any surface. And I've been watching a lot of the progeny of Improbable since they've started getting over longer distances. And it seems like the progeny of that stallion are really getting better as the distances stretch out. So I'm not too worried about Faber getting the mile and a half. And if you're worried about the turf, Gino, and you go back to the beginning of his career, he won his debut on this surface and beat Nitrogen that day. And I think Nitrogen would be pretty tough in this field. So I'm not too concerned about him getting back on the turf here, and he could be a fair price.
Yeah, he's I think 8-1 in the morning line. Anything in that 6-ish and above range, that's very fair. As we move to Sedberry's Ghost, this guy actually won the plate trial, so he goes into the King's Plate as a very logical contender in there. And then most recently he was out wide, and I think really, really wide throughout just hurt him. He backed up. He was about 8 lengths off. I mean, at one point he's like 12 to 13, and then horses really weren't launching and getting the pace to run at there, David. So there were a couple horses like Sedberry's Ghost, Tom's Magic, who ended up, I think, just getting farther back in the King's Plate than I would have expected looking at them on paper. I wonder if they're going to try a different type of trip in here and just get this horse a lot more involved in the race early.
Yeah, I think they really should. I mean, Sedberry's Ghost was just in a bad position right from the start of that race. He got a little shuffled back going into the clubhouse turn. And as you said, these four horses were all kind of just languishing at the back of the pack. And he was the widest of them all, just stuck outside. He could never pick up any momentum. I did want to see him finish a little stronger than he did in the King's Plate, but I do believe the trip was a valid excuse. And he looked really good when he won that plate trial two back. He traveled well every step of the way, made a couple of moves within the race, and won very convincingly. He's got to prove that he can handle the turf, but his dam did win on the turf. There are enough influences here to suggest he should be able to translate his form, so I think he's a contender.
David, I've joked with you about a cold streak I've been going through. One of those horses who I had in the King's Plate was Tom's Magic, who kind of runs a good winning type race. You feel like he kind of isolated the right horse there, but he was a clear-cut second. And now if you bet him this time, you're not going to be getting the 5 to 6 to 1 that you got last time out. You're going to be taking the even money. I mean, he's a very logical contender. That was a good effort from him. And the one thing that did surprise me was he'd actually shown a lot more like positional speed earlier in his career. There'd been a couple times where he was sitting very close to paces and he was way, way out of it, but did close very, very well here. I mean, I think he's certainly the horse to beat. He's going to go third start of the form cycle. The connections had been pointing him to these races. They knew all along that he was going to be running in some of these big Canadian Triple Crown races. So I think very logical, David, and he looks like one of the horses to beat in here.
Yeah, I think that was a bad beat for you, Gino, because even though this looks like a fast pace on paper, when you watch it, you wouldn't think so based on the way it played out because the whole field was so bunched in the early stages and he just got shuffled back. They didn't show a whole lot of aggression out of the gate, as you were alluding to, and he was just way too far back in the early stages. And it was actually the only horse that was making up significant ground like that at the end of the race. So he proved that he can handle the distance. We already know that he's a good turf horse. And you're right, Gino. I mean, he had shown good tactical speed early in his races, and I wonder if he's a horse that could actually just get sent to the front in here as the best horse in the race. Maybe they just try to seize the bull by the horns from the start. Might not be the worst plan.
Absolutely. I could see him either doing that or just trying to sit really close from the outside and just think, hey, we're one of the best horses. Let's stay in the clear. Let's not get in any trouble or anything like that. And let's make sure if we're the best horse, we're going to give ourselves every opportunity. So we round things out for the Breeders' Stakes, the third leg of the Canadian Triple Crown. David, as we move to selections for this one, who are you going to put on top in here?
Yeah, I think Tom's Magic is very much the horse to beat in this race. I just thought that Faber had significant trouble in the King's Plate, had shown that prior good turf form, and would be the right price stretching out in here, so I put him on top.
Yep, lots of similarities for the two of us. I'm going to go 3-9-4-7 with Borealis Trail on top, 7-9-8-3 for David with Faber on top. We'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment in the section below. Let us know who you're going to play this weekend in the Breeders' Stakes.